Sarah Chen stared at the crumpled bills in her trembling hands. $11. That was all that stood between her 7-year-old daughter Emma and complete desperation. The eviction notice taped to their apartment door felt like a death sentence, and the empty refrigerator hummed mockingly in the background. What Sarah didn't know was that this moment of absolute rock bottom would somehow become the foundation of something extraordinary that would touch thousands of lives across America. The morning had started like any other in their tiny one-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland. Emma was getting ready for school, her bright smile a stark contrast to the worry lines that had become permanent fixtures on Sarah's face. As a single mother working 2 part-time jobs at a diner and a convenience store, Sarah barely scraped together enough to keep them afloat. The medical bills from Emma's recent bout with pneumonia had drained what little savings they had, and now reality was crashing down around them. Emma noticed her mother's distress immediately. Despite being only 7 years old, she had developed an intuition about their financial struggles that broke Sarah's heart. The little girl walked over and wrapped her small arms around her mother's waist. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Emma asked, her voice filled with the kind of innocent trust that made Sarah's chest tighten with determination. Sarah knelt down to Emma's level, smoothing back her daughter's dark hair. "We're going to figure this out, sweetheart. We always do." But privately, Sarah had no idea how. The landlord had already given them 2 extensions, and her next paycheck wasn't due for another week. Even then, it wouldn't be enough to cover the back rent they owed. After dropping Emma off at school, Sarah found herself walking aimlessly through the city streets, the $11 burning a hole in her pocket. She passed by bustling cafes where people casually ordered $5 lattes without a second thought, and she felt the sharp sting of her circumstances. That's when she noticed him. An elderly man sat hunched on a bench outside the public library, his weathered hands wrapped around a cardboard sign that read, "Homeless Veteran. Anything helps." His clothes were clean but worn, and there was a dignity in his posture despite his obvious need. Something about his quiet presence struck a chord deep within Sarah's heart. She stopped walking and studied the man more closely. His eyes held a familiar look, the same exhaustion and worry she saw in her own reflection every morning. Without fully understanding why, Sarah found herself approaching him. "Excuse me," she said softly. The man looked up, his pale blue eyes meeting hers with cautious hope. "I don't have much," Sarah continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I wanted to give you this." She held out 5 of her precious dollars, leaving her with only 6. The man's eyes widened with surprise and something that looked like disbelief. "Miss, are you sure? You look like you might need this more than I do." Sarah was taken aback by his perceptiveness and kindness. Here was a man with nothing, yet he was concerned about her well-being. "I'm sure," she said, pressing the money into his weathered palm. "What's your name?" the man asked. "Sarah." "And yours?" "Robert. Robert Martinez." "Thank you, Sarah. This will help me get a hot meal tonight. God bless you." As Sarah walked away, something fundamental had shifted inside her. Despite having even less money than before, she felt lighter somehow. The act of giving, even when she had almost nothing to give, had awakened something powerful within her spirit. That evening, as she tucked Emma into bed, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She told her daughter about Robert and explained what she had done. Emma's response was immediate and enthusiastic. "That was really nice, Mom. Can we help more people like Mr. Robert?" Sarah smiled at her daughter's generous heart. "Maybe we can find a way, honey." Over the next few days, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Robert and others like him. She began paying attention to the homeless individuals she encountered throughout her daily routine. There was Maria, the young woman who slept in the doorway of the closed bookstore. There was James, the veteran who stood at the freeway on-ramp with a cardboard sign. Each person had a story, a life that had somehow led them to the streets. An idea began forming in Sarah's mind. What if she could mobilize others who wanted to help but didn't know how? What if she could create a network of kindness that started small but grew into something significant? Using the computer at the public library, Sarah created a simple social media page called Portland Kindness Network. Her first post was humble but heartfelt. "I'm a single mom with very little, but I believe we can make a difference together. Let's find small ways to help our homeless neighbors. Who's with me?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, dozens of people had joined the page and shared their own stories of wanting to help. A local teacher offered to donate blankets. A retired baker volunteered to make sandwiches. College students organized care package assembly parties. Sarah's 6 remaining dollars became the seed money for their first coordinated effort. She used it to buy supplies for care packages, and the community filled in the rest. Within 2 weeks, they had distributed over 100 care packages throughout Portland. The local news caught wind of the story. How had a single mother with only $11 started a movement that was now feeding and clothing dozens of homeless individuals? Sarah found herself being interviewed on television, still wearing her diner uniform because she had come straight from work. The exposure brought even more volunteers and donations. Local businesses began partnering with the Portland Kindness Network. The $11 story resonated with people across the country, and similar networks began sprouting up in other cities. But the most beautiful part of Sarah's story wasn't the growth of the organization. It was what happened to her personally. The act of giving when she had almost nothing had taught her something profound about abundance. She discovered that kindness was the only resource that multiplied when shared. Robert, the homeless veteran who had received her first $5, became one of the organization's most dedicated volunteers once he got back on his feet with help from the network. He often told people that Sarah's kindness had reminded him of his own worth when he had forgotten it completely. 3 years later, the Portland Kindness Network had helped over 2,000 homeless individuals find resources, shelter, and hope. Sarah still worked her jobs at the diner and convenience store, but now she also served as the volunteer coordinator for a movement that had spread to 15 cities across America. Emma, now 10 years old, had learned lessons about compassion and resilience that would shape her entire life. She often accompanied her mother on distribution days, her small hands carefully arranging items in care packages with the same meticulous love her mother had shown. The eviction notice that had once terrified Sarah still hung framed on their apartment wall, not as a reminder of their hardships, but as a testament to how quickly life could change when kindness became the driving force. Sarah's story proves that the size of our resources doesn't determine the size of our impact. Sometimes the most powerful movements begin with the smallest acts of love. Her $11 became millions of moments of human connection, thousands of lives touched, and countless hearts opened to the power of giving. If Sarah's story moved your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Pure Kindness Stories for more inspiring tales of human compassion. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to light up the world. Because sometimes, all it takes is $11 and a heart willing to give when it seems impossible to do so. Your kindness matters more than you know, and your story could be the next one that changes everything.